following episode of Tyler Vance Rants features scenes of intense violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Before there was WrestleMania, there was Starrcade. Thanks for tuning in to a special episode of Tyler Vance Rants and a special review at what can be considered professional wrestling's very first supercard with Starrcade 83, a flair for the gold. Starrcade would eventually go on to be an annual event hosted by both the National Wrestling Alliance as well as Jim Crockett Promotions, parent company behind Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. So you'll see a lot of familiar faces tonight if you've been following along with my regular weekly episodes. If not, you should be. We're traveling back in time tonight to November 24th, 1983. And as soon as we tune into Starrcade, we're greeted with something. I can't tell what I'm looking at here. Is it fireworks? Circles? I don't know, but the music is awesome. The very first match of Starrcade pits the Assassins, managed by Paul Jones, so nothing has changed on that front, against the then NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, Rufus R. Jones, and his partner, Bugsy McGraw. And don't worry, Bugsy is just as dumb as he looks and sounds. A familiar voice to us, Bob Caudle, will be calling some of the action tonight, but joining him is one of the, if not the most famous play-by-play commentator of all time, Gordon Solie. During his career, Gordon Solie would be likened to the Walter Cronkite of professional wrestling, and would go on to serve as an inspiration for many, including good old JR, Jim Ross. The match gets off to a slow start between Assassin Number 2 and Bugsy McGraw. Ooh, hold on a second, where'd the camera go? Oh, wait, there it is. That's okay. Even major promotions can suffer setbacks with things like this. Both competitors, Assassin 2 as well as Bugsy McGraw, switch between holds and power moves before eventually the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion is tagged in by his partner Bugsy. Rufus R. Jones is eventually isolated by the Assassins, but does manage to fight back to Bugsy and get another tag in. A backdrop on Assassin Number 2 looks fatal for him, and he looks like he's about to lose the effort for his team when Assassin Number 1 sneaks in a blind tag, making him the legal man. Not knowing this, the rotund assassin manages to grab Bugsy into a schoolboy roll-up and get the 1-2-3 for his team. Backstage, Tony Schiavone is in the men's dressing room, and he mentions that throughout the night he will be getting candid comments from winners and losers alike throughout the night. I'm very interested to hear what some of these folks will have to say. Heading back to the ring, the next match sees tag team action again between the teams of Johnny Weaver and Scott McGee against Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin, who are managed by Gary Hart. McGee and Sullivan get the match off to a very fast start.
Many people have accused Sullivan of being a druid.
A druid? Like from World of Warcraft? I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. While Sullivan gets things off for his team to a blistering start, when Lewin is in, he slows things down. This gives Weaver and McGee an opportunity to focus on the big man's left arm through a mixture of moves and holds, but Lewin is a brute, and he fights back through all of it. Also, the ref shouldn't have been allowed to just walk down to the ring with whatever he happened to be wearing that day. Aren't we supposed to be running a professional organization here? The fashion sense in the 1980s is just embarrassing. For those of you that were around back then, how did you walk around like that? Weaver attempts to come to his partner's aid with a rather embarrassing looking bulldog, but for his efforts only manages to swap places and get isolated himself. You're doing great, Weaver. Just great. Lewin keeps Weaver isolated just long enough to hit a knee drop onto his opponent from the top rope to secure a win for his team. During the celebration, Gary Hart is attacked and... Holy crap, is that a knife? Hart is not messing around. After an attack on McGee with that object, whether it's a knife or a spike, I really can't tell, it ends with McGee getting all red in the face, and it's not from blushing. For some reason, I guess because if you watched my regular episodes, you know that Angelo Mosca Sr. likes to make everything about himself. He rushes down to the ring in a vain attempt to help both Weaver and McGee, but all he gets in return is stabbed in the arm. He does eventually get up and manage to carry a seemingly comatose Weaver to the backstage area, and somebody should really check on him. Well, that escalated quickly. Let's see what some kids have to say about what we just saw. Barbara Clery is in the ringside area with a family, and she is questioning them on who they think is going to win tonight's main event, the steel cage match between challenger Ric Flair against the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Harley Race. She even asks this little kid, who seems to be quite traumatized, "What are you asking me for, lady? Did you just see that? I think I'm gonna be sick. My parents are having a blast, but I think I just blasted my pants." Tony Schiavone takes over interview duties now, and we are backstage in the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Harley Race's locker room. With Schiavone are the World Tag Team Champions, the Brisco brothers, Jack and Jerry, along with the NWA United States Heavyweight Champion, Greg the Hammer Valentine. What the World Heavyweight Champion here has to say is that he is a student of the game, and he has been studying his challenger, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, for quite some time. This even led to Race putting out a $25,000 bounty on the Nature Boy, a bounty that was collected by both Bob Orton Jr. and Dirty Dick Slater. They managed to attack the Nature Boy and seriously injure Ric Flair's neck. Race says that due to the condition of Flair's brittle neck at the moment, that's exactly what he's going to be focusing on in his match tonight with the Nature Boy. Things are not looking good in Ric Flair's corner right now. The next match is an interesting one. What I mean by interesting is that it pits Carlos Colon against Abdullah the Butcher. However, this match was banned in the promotion that these two men currently compete in, the World Wrestling Council, which is based out of Puerto Rico. The feud between Colon and the Butcher goes back a very long way, and it has gotten to a point where Colon wants the Butcher so badly but can't in Puerto Rico that he had no choice but to challenge the Butcher on mainland United States soil. There is absolutely nothing pretty about this match. As soon as it gets going, Colon and Abdullah the Butcher just absolutely bludgeon each other. Colon reaches into the Butcher's pants, revealing a hidden spike, who he then tries to use to rearrange Abdullah's face with. Not even the referee is spared in this match. He gets stuck underneath Carlos Colon, who then moves out of the way, so the referee suffers an elbow drop from the massive frame of Abdullah the Butcher. He's out cold. Colon manages to get his opponent into a figure four leg lock, but before the victory can be handed to him, the manager of Abdullah the Butcher, Hugo Savinovich, enters the ring and attacks Colon. Only then is Abdullah the Butcher able to roll on top of his opponent and get the win. I'm kind of glad that match is over because I feel like we need a break from all the extreme violence that we've seen so far tonight. And I don't think it's the last we have seen of it either. Tony Schiavone is still in the locker room. This time he's with Angelo Mosca Sr., who is still very bloodied and bandaged from the night's earlier attack. Mosca Sr. is supposed to be the special guest referee for the upcoming NWA World Tag Team Championship match between Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood against the champions themselves, the Brisco brothers, Jack and Jerry. Schiavone wants to know if, due to Angelo Mosca Sr.'s condition, if he'll still be able to referee that match. You know, considering he was literally stabbed. Mosca Sr. confirms that yes, he will still be refereeing that match, and I have to give it to him, that's pretty impressive. He then goes on to justify why he went down to the ring to help out Weaver and McGee. It seems that McGee reminds Angelo Mosca Sr. of his son, Angelo Mosca Jr. And he also goes on to state that
there's no place in the NWA or professional wrestling for these acts.
What about that sanctioned match that we just saw between Carlos Colon and Abdullah the Butcher? The NWA sanctioned that violent match, so maybe there is a place for those kind of actions here after all, Angelo. While Mosca Sr. speaks, the camera slowly zooms out and reveals a practically dying Scott McGee still untreated next to Angelo Mosca Sr. Could somebody please get this man an ambulance? Not yet. Before Scott McGee is able to breathe his last breath, Tony Schiavone needs to know one thing. He asks Angelo Mosca Sr. his opinion. Flair or Race? Of course, Mosca Sr. picks Flair because both he and Flair are both losers. In all seriousness, though, could somebody please get Scott McGee medical help? Our third tag team match of the night sees Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood take on Bob Orton Jr. and Dick Slater. Before we get to the match, the ring announcer, Tom Miller, tries to announce the presence of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes in the crowd, but there seems to be some audio issues happening, so we'll check back on that later. Slater starts the match super aggressively, and Steamboat actually takes advantage of the Dirty One's own momentum against him. Youngblood kicks Dick Slater over the top rope, so disqualification! Orton Jr. and Slater win! If you throw your opponent over the top rope in any manner, it is an automatic disqualification, so what is this referee doing? I want him fined, and I want him suspended. Slater is absolutely furious that the match is allowed to continue, so he takes his frustrations out on Youngblood. After getting a near fall on Youngblood following a Russian leg sweep, Orton Jr. is then tagged in, who also proceeds to absolutely take it to Mark. Youngblood fights for his life, but whatever he does, he never seems to be able to make it to Chief Wahoo McDaniel in their corner to get out of the ring. Instead, Slater and Youngblood actually collide, and only then is Chief Wahoo McDaniel able to get himself involved in the match. Chief McDaniel manages to get control of the match for his team, but only temporarily. Bob Orton Jr. manages to send Chief McDaniel flying out of the ring so that he and Slater can focus again on the weak link of Mark Youngblood. It is then that Orton Jr. manages to suplex Mark Youngblood from the corner and secure the win for his team. Chief McDaniel then demonstrates what a poor sport he is by attacking the winners after the match. As a result, he manages to get his arm injured following a knee drop from the second rope. Back in the locker room, Tony Schiavone is now with the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who's got the tag team of Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat alongside him. Flair states that he is prepared fully for his upcoming NWA World Heavyweight Championship match against Harley Race, and then he takes the time to offer well wishes and sincere luck to Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood in their upcoming NWA World Tag Team Championship match against the Brisco brothers. They in turn offer the Nature Boy the exact same and wish him luck. We then head back to the ringside area with Barbara Clery. Unfortunately, audio issues continue to plague the broadcast, or someone just really does not want to hear what Dusty Rhodes has to say, so we'll check back in on the American Dream later. Again. We have our first of 3 championship matches next. This match sees the NWA television champion, the Great Kabuki, put his championship on the line against challenger Charlie Brown's Mask. This stipulation, however, is only on the line for 15 minutes. If a fall is scored by either party anytime following that, neither the championship nor Charlie Brown's Mask are on the line. Some context to this match. Earlier on in the year, Gary Hart challenged the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, in a loser leaves town match. Valiant lost to the current NWA television champion and Gary Hart's client, the Great Kabuki, and was forced to leave the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area. Shortly after this, Charlie Brown arrived and began competing in the area. Gary Hart was absolutely convinced that Charlie Brown was actually Jimmy Valiant in disguise, and so has used this match as a pretext to prove himself right. It makes sense to me. Off with Brown's Mask! Brown starts the match off strong, and it's not long before both the challenger and champion fight outside.
Gary Hart very upset about it, and Charlie Brown, old downtown himself.
Disqualification. Right? Right? Why is the match continuing? Brown lost! Off with this mask! I want this referee fined and suspended. What is with the officiating tonight? I'm about to hop in there myself. Since the match is allowed to continue and the rulebook is basically thrown out the window, Brown gets the Great Kabuki into a sleeper hold, pushing the television champion to the limit. The roles reverse temporarily as the Great Kabuki manages to get Brown into his dreaded claw, but Brown fights out of it. And then the Great Kabuki gets the claw back on Brown, who fights out of it again. And then the Great Kabuki manages to get the claw on Brown again, who manages to fight out of it again. I'm not kidding. Repeat that one more time, and you will have 4 claws and 4 fighting out of it attempts by Brown, and that's what you get for what seems to go on forever. That must be Jimmy Valiant under that mask because no one else's skull is thick enough to withstand that kind of pressure. Realizing this, the NWA television champion changes his tactics and begins to beat on Brown. While this is happening, the Great Kabuki misses an errant knee. That leads to Charlie Valiant getting an elbow drop on the champion to win the whole thing. It's okay. It's okay. Just remember, he vacates it. You know who Dude Walker is, right? Well, neither did I until I watched Starrcade 83. Apparently, he's a local radio host in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, which is where Starrcade is being hosted. The crowd acknowledges his presence with a mild reaction, and Bob Caudle asks the disc jockey who he thinks is going to come away tonight with the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, Nature Boy Ric Flair or Harley Race. He picks Flair, so all we can assume is that Dude is a Walker Carolina loser. Elsewhere, Tony Schiavone is with Bob Orton Jr., Dirty Dick Slater, and the man that Dude just snuffed, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Harley Race. As I mentioned, Orton Jr. and Slater were the ones that collected that $25,000 bounty that Race had put out. As a result of their accomplishments in hurting Ric Flair's neck, they state that they have absolutely no doubt that Harley Race will be able to walk away as the champion by the end of the night. Slater also comments that he believes it's a conspiracy that tonight's World Heavyweight Championship match will be taking place inside a steel cage, stating that it's designed specifically to keep him and Bob Orton Jr. from interfering. Don't worry, gentlemen. I'm sure the NWA would never, ever be so sneaky. Whether it's a conspiracy or not, Harley Race states that he is going to outright eliminate the Nature Boy Ric Flair tonight by focusing solely on his neck. I sincerely hope that you're taking these threats seriously, Ric Flair. Remember Dusty Rhodes? Well, third time's a charm. We finally get to hear what he's been trying to say this whole night as he tells Barbara Clery that no matter who wins tonight, he is putting out a challenge to the new or retaining NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He then ultimately says that he believes that Harley Race is the one that's going to be walking away. And finally, we get some sense from the American Dream. Roddy Piper and Greg the Hammer Valentine hate each other. They've had bad blood for months, and Piper recently sustained an ear injury courtesy of the Hammer. This animosity has come to a head, and their match next is what's known as a dog collar match. As you can see, Roddy Piper and Greg Valentine are connected by the neck. This means that neither opponent can get away from one another, and crucially, if they so choose, they can use the chain as well as the collar to their advantage. Despite the Hammer being the current NWA United States Heavyweight Champion, the title will not be on the line here tonight. Not surprisingly, the match is incredibly physical and violent, with the two trying everything in their power to absolutely maim one another. Valentine focuses on Piper's ear during the match and even goes further, trying to blind the Scotsman with the chain. Piper repays the Hammer in kind. During this exchange, the United States Heavyweight Champion gets cut. Piper and Valentine wrestle then outside of the ring and take turns absolutely wailing on one another. When they try to get back in the ring, the referee for some reason interferes on Greg Valentine's behalf, which leads to the Hammer gaining advantage. Who hired these referees? Do they even have licenses? This is a no disqualification match, bro. All you have to do is stand there and count the falls. That's it. Valentine eventually lives up to his moniker and smashes into Roddy Piper's injured left ear, causing him to start to bleed from it, which is not a good sign. Despite being severely hindered by the ear injury, Roddy Piper manages to fight back and explodes into a frenzy, viciously assaulting his opponent with his chain, using a mixture of whips and yanks. It's at this point that fatigue and pain take their toll. Both men collapse, and it looks like a murder scene. After a desperate sleeper hold by Valentine, Piper strings the Hammer up and gets the win. The punishment isn't over yet, however. Valentine gets revenge by nearly strangling Piper to death. Piper struggles and hangs on for all he's got until the referee finally does something right and separates the two. As Piper gets to his feet, he's met with a standing ovation, and for both of them. Ric Flair is joined by Chief Wahoo McDaniel, who we saw earlier, as well as Tony Schiavone once again. Flair says that he expects the absolute best from Harley Race in his upcoming match, which is just moments away. The Nature Boy then thanks Chief Wahoo McDaniel for helping him get this far, and it leads me to ask, does the Nature Boy seem a little bit too calm to you? It's like the Nature Boy doesn't understand the severity of the threat that Harley Race put out earlier by focusing on Ric Flair's neck tonight. You might be done tonight, pal. Like, done. Chief Wahoo McDaniel then puts his opinion into the hat, because everybody seems to be doing that tonight, and he picks Ric Flair, of course, as the one who's going to be walking away with the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. The Chief is also going to bet all of his money just based purely on the kind of athlete that the Nature Boy is. Someone's been taking financial advice from Baron von Raschke, I see. Ringside once again, Barbara Clery interviews a familiar face to NWA crowds, a returning World Tag Team Champion, Don Kernodle. Kernodle had spent some time away from the NWA and in the WWF for a few months before coming back, and he tells Barbara that he wishes both the challengers, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, luck in their upcoming match against the NWA World Tag Team Champions, the Brisco brothers, Jack and Jerry, who he also wishes luck to. Then Kernodle does something baffling by saying that he thinks that Flair is going to be walking away as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Don, how much did Flair pay you to say that? Speaking of the NWA World Tag Team Championship, that match is next. Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat are taking on the Brisco brothers, with Angelo Mosca Sr. acting as special guest referee. Woohoo! The history of both teams goes back a way, and it leads to a cautious approach by the two starting individuals of Ricky Steamboat and Jack Brisco. Jack tags in his brother Jerry quite frequently and vice versa, and the pair manage to wear Steamboat down before he himself tags in his partner Jay Youngblood. He manages to get a brief advantage for his team. Once Steamboat is tagged back in, the Briscoes resume their previous strategy of playing mind games and wearing Steamboat's stamina down. I can't believe what I just saw. That was amazing. Steamboat's amazing physical strength is enough for him to break free and get a critical tag once again to Jay Youngblood. However, a double-team shoulder tackle knocks Youngblood down hard, and the Briscoes continue their dominance. Hey Jay, you know better than I. When you're a team, you share the pain. A slow count by the special guest referee leads to an altercation between Angelo Mosca Sr., and he just ends up straight up shoving Jerry Brisco down. What the hell? When this is over, I'm going to be writing a sternly worded letter to Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA Board of Directors about the god-awful officiating tonight. It wouldn't have even been qualified for a backyard wrestling event. Disgusting. Since Angelo Mosca Sr. is the hidden third member of Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat's team, it's no wonder that the challengers get an advantage going forward. A double team from Jay and Ricky leads directly to a win and claims them a fifth World Tag Team Championship reign. Angelo Mosca Sr. is directly responsible for this catastrophe, and I don't think I'll ever forgive him. Understandably upset by this turn of events, Jack and Jerry Brisco attack the new World Tag Team Champions, but eventually they're just driven back to the locker room due to the three-man advantage. I'm sure they'll get their comeuppance eventually. There's a brief intermission before tonight's main event, and we join Tony Schiavone once again in the backstage locker room area as he interviews the new television champion, Charlie Brown. Just remember, Tyler, he vacates it. Brown dedicates the win to the fans as well as to himself, Jimmy Valiant. Oh, sorry, we're still pretending that the two of them are different people. Disregard that. Schiavone then brings in Roddy Piper, who very pointedly asks his opponent in the earlier match, Greg the Hammer Valentine, a question.
Come here. Hey, Valentine. Is that the best you can do, huh?
Piper then goes on to challenge Greg the Hammer Valentine for a rematch. However, this time, he wants it to be for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. This is almost immediately responded to by the Hammer, and he says that it's not over, Piper, and he'll wrestle the Scotsman anytime, anywhere. It'll be a good one, I promise. The new NWA World Tag Team Champions, Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat, are Tony Schiavone's guests next, and Jay goes on to say that now that they are 5-time World Tag Team Champions, he and Ricky have proven themselves. That is an awesome feat. However, it seems that it also proves that you boys can't hold on to these championships for long either. I guess we'll see how long your reign will last this time. Schiavone tries to then get one last interview with the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Harley Race, who's just waved off. Bob Caudle and Gordon Solie then recap the night's events up until this point, and believe it or not, I actually lose a little respect for Gordon Solie, as he states that Angelo Mosca Sr. is not directly responsible for the Brisco brothers losing the NWA World Tag Team Championships.
I thought Angelo Mosca did an outstanding job as a referee. He was fair, he was straight down the middle, he was impartial. He took issue when he had to take issue.
Did you not watch the same match that I did, Gordon? Do I have to get you a new pair of glasses? He's directly responsible. Give me a break. This is it. The moment that everyone has been waiting for. A months-long grudge match between the old generation and the new. A match so embroiled in bitterness that a steel cage is the only hope of containing these two. The Nature Boy Ric Flair challenges Harley Race for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. It doesn't get any bigger than this. To start it off, James Tiny Weeks sings the United States National Anthem.
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
Maybe don't quit your day job, Tiny. There's now some kind of light show on the ceiling, and I'm sure if you were there in the crowd and could actually tell just what the hell you were looking at, it would be awesome. For those of us with the benefit of a 4K TV and a living room, however, we get to take our own version of a Rorschach test. It's the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, and he's coming out to a massive applause from the Greensboro, North Carolina crowd, whereas Harley Race receives the exact opposite. Don't take it too personally, Mr. Race. People from Greensboro wouldn't know talent if it came up and slapped them square in the face. A wrestling legend is the special guest referee for tonight's World Heavyweight Championship match. Everyone knew that this match would be hard to control, and so the NWA brought in one of the toughest men to ever grace the squared circle, Gene Kiniski. When the bell rings to signify that the match finally has begun, both competitors take the opportunity to feel each other out with some chain wrestling. Both of these men know each other very well. In a steel cage match, there are no rules. There are 3 ways normally to win: pinfall, submission, or you could escape the cage. In this particular steel cage match, only pinfalls and submissions are counted. And if you ask me personally, that's the way it always should be. Fight me, because I will die on that hill. Anyway, since there are no rules, the referee, special or not, is meant to simply stand there and count the pinfalls or acknowledge the submission of one of the competitors. They can also stop the match, of course, due to an emergency, but in no way should they be getting as involved as Gene Kiniski is. Flair manages to gain an advantage at the beginning of the match by wearing the champion's stamina down, putting a headlock on Harley Race, who then manages to break out of it following a suplex to the Nature Boy. Race begins to absolutely beat on Flair, targeting the Nature Boy's neck. A nasty pile driver followed by an elbow from the champion gets a near fall on the challenger. Despite kicking out, Flair continues to have his neck targeted by Harley Race as the match goes on, which leads to several more near falls. The Nature Boy begins to bleed profusely after he's thrown into the cage by Race. Kiniski involves himself again, holding Race back against the World Heavyweight Champion, which allows the Nature Boy to once again come out on top. An Irish whip sends Race into the corner, causing him to bleed too. Flair continues to build momentum and puts the champion in a pile driver of his own, nearly securing the win as he does so. After some more offense, the Nature Boy manages to put Harley Race into his figure four leg lock. However, Race reverses it, and the Nature Boy is forced to break it lest he become a victim of his own device. At this point, the competitors are both running on empty, and it just begs the question, who's going to be the one to be able to withstand the most punishment? Gene Kiniski catches a wild headbutt from the champion Harley Race, which leads to...
He's got him down. 1, 2, 3. He did it.
Ric Flair is the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion. This is Kiniski's fault. Several wrestlers storm the ring, and in the celebration, Flair finally manages to get a word to speak, and he thanks the fans for helping him get to where he is.
This is the greatest night of my life.
Even the birth of my kids couldn't live up to this. Woo! Tony Schiavone wraps things up for us in the locker room by talking to Flair once again, and as the Nature Boy is beginning to thank his friends and family for getting him this far, he's covered in champagne. Woo. The final word of the night comes from the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, who congratulates Ric Flair on his win. But he makes one thing perfectly clear.
Won't you remember one thing, Daddy? Down the road, there's one more dream yet to feel.
Wow. What a night. Starrcade 83 certainly lived up to the hype. It was a huge night with even bigger names and significant consequences. All three championships that were defended changed hands. Charlie Brown succeeded the great Kabuki as the NWA television champion. Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat overthrew the champions, the Brisco brothers, Jack and Jerry, to become the new NWA World Tag Team Champions. And Ric Flair defeated Harley Race to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. There would be one more Starrcade event hosted in November of 1984 before the World Wrestling Federation would follow suit in March of 1985 with WrestleMania. Even though WrestleMania would bring pro wrestling into the mainstream media limelight and set off wrestling's golden age, and despite what Vince McMahon would have you believe, Jim Crockett Jr. and the NWA did it all first with Starrcade 83. Thank you so much for tuning into this special episode of Tyler Vance Rants and our look at Starrcade 83, A Flair for the Gold. What match did you enjoy the most, and what did you think overall of the event? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe so you never miss an episode, including my regular weekly ones. As well, share the video with your friends, follow me on social media, and I will see you next time. So long for now. Hello. There is absolutely nothing pretty about this match. As soon as it's Tony Schiavone is still in the Lester's rocker room. It is then that Orton Jr. manages to use a corner on Youngblood from... he uses the corner to suplex him. It's funny because I'm actually filming this on Canadian Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving! Flair states that he's prepared fully for his upcoming World Championship Heavyweight Tournament. EA Sports, it's a game. With Angelo Mosca Jew Sr.